My name is Danny Sheehan. I'm a constitutional litigator who has tried some of the most important cases in recent American history. From Pentagon Papers, the Watergate scandal, to Iran-Contra. My legal career has led me now to this pivotal moment. As our human family confronts the implications of the existence here on our planet of extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional non-human species. I will be your guide as we dive into the profound philosophical, theological, and public policy questions pertaining to the UFO phenomenon, alien life, and the citizen movement for disclosure. This is the Full Disclosure Podcast, coming to you from the New Paradigm Institute on SpectreVision Radio.
SpectreVision Radio.
Telemetry and launch condition.
Well, some other observers are...
Hey, it's late night.
It's late night on the astral plane, where it's never too late. With your host, Ryan Singer.
It's more fun to believe.
Hey everybody, thank you for listening to another voyage of Late Night on the Astral Plane. This is your buddy Ryan Singer. I am happy to be with you here today. We are celebrating Disclosure Week here at SpectreVision Radio. As one of the many shows on SpectreVision Radio, we are going to talk about and have an entire episode focused on disclosure, which, if you know anything about me, you know I've been a huge advocate for disclosure, full disclosure, not soft, not slow disclosure, for years and years. Disclosure is probably the biggest human rights issue that we have as a planet or as a species, the entire human species. I saw a lawmaker recently say something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, reality should not be didacted, and it should not be a privilege. Knowing what reality is a fundamental right. It is not something that needs to be legislated. And when we're talking about, what can come out, what can't come out during these, congressional hearings, I am completely on board and agree with what that person is saying. Reality should not be legislated. Let's see if I can make this window a little bit bigger. I'm going to be sharing a bunch of screen and stuff here today regarding showing some videos and things like that. So let's see what we got here. Okay, so yeah, thanks for being here. And as always, patrons get commercial-free voyages over at patreon.com/Ryan Singer. Okay, so as we celebrate Disclosure Week on SpectreVision Radio Network, I wanted to dive into some sort of what I'd consider to be the foundational aspects of disclosure. Now, we are doing this to celebrate the release of the movie Disclosure Day, which is a big Spielberg movie that comes out, I believe, tomorrow by the time this comes out, so on June 12th. Spielberg obviously involved in E.T., Close Encounters. I mean, we're talking, this is a big one, right? As far as, a summer blockbuster goes. This is probably one of the biggest summer blockbusters regarding disclosure. I mean, it's called Disclosure Day, after all. It's like I said, it's a new Spielberg movie that it's based on disclosure. And we can make some big assumptions about the movie and the process by which it was made when we watch the trailers that have come out. The first big assumption: the writers and creators of this movie, there was two writers, it was Spielberg and another person wrote this movie. Spielberg wrote the story and then brought in a screenwriter who wrote the script. They've been paying close attention to disclosure for the last 10 years. the disclosure movement specifically, and potentially even longer. You can see imagery and themes that run through the paranormal community showcased prominently in the commercials and the trailers. And I know from talking to experiencers that the trailers have impacted them emotionally, at least some of them. The second big assumption we can make about Disclosure Day movie is they are using real experiencer and witness stories that have been shared on podcasts and at conferences to inform their story and their script. Now, there's a lot more places you can hear, there's books, there's podcasts, there's public conferences, things like that, anywhere people are sharing their experiences. I have tried to stay away from reading or knowing too much about the film before seeing it because I hate spoilers, right? It doesn't matter what kind of movie it is. It doesn't matter if it's a new Toy Story 5 is coming out this summer. It's going to be a big summer. You got a new Minions and Monsters movie coming out this summer. It's going to be I'm going to be spending a lot of time in a movie theater this summer. I hate spoilers. So I don't usually like to even watch trailers for films I know I'm going to see, or even films that I don't know if I'll ever see, just because I don't like spoilers of any kind, right? Now, people have speculated that Spielberg was given information by the United States government to put into this film. Do I think that is true? I have no idea. I am skeptical of such claims, to say the least, right? Saying that he's been charged with doing some soft disclosure to the public by putting in bits and pieces of information that they have given him exclusively. I cannot speak to that, like I said, but I can tell you that this is not the disclosure event starting the U.S. government finally telling us about aliens and UFOs. That has already happened, and it's happened years earlier. And why do I say that? I say it's because it's been happening for a long time. And it's been happening for much longer than the mainstream media, or specifically the mainstream media moviegoers, or just like, people who have extremely busy lives with families and other things, and they don't have a bunch of time to sit around and dig into disclosure and UFOs and, certain areas of conspiratorial thinking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? They're probably not aware of some of this stuff. I want to cover in this episode some of these sources of disclosure that have been around and have been coming out for years, right? And they haven't garnered enough attention. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we can see, or maybe we can glean a little bit from this and understanding that, the latest tranche, as they call them, tranches, the two big releases in May, I think it was May 8th and the 22nd of May, I think, or I'm pretty sure, well, on the Department of War's website. I've linked it in the show notes. You can go there. We're going to go through some of the stuff that's on there as well. We're going to go through the Disclosure Project book that the disclosure, let's see here. Let me grab it. Sorry, it's a little loud. The Disclosure Project Briefing Document 2025. We're going to go through a little bit of that potentially as well. And we're also going to be going through what I would consider to be one of the biggest disclosure, just out in the open books, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, written by the guys who were in charge of the secret DIA, UFO, UAP, and paranormal research project that was happening at the Pentagon. And, better known as OSAP, unfortunately misnamed ATIP by Lou Elizondo, who was not part of OSAP, from what I can tell. He was in the cursory talks of maybe being brought into the project, but they think he was on ATIP, the government and their acronyms, right? Let's see here. So the private sector, the private world, people like you and me, we have been disclosing experiences, sightings, and things like that for decades and decades and decades, right? And the government has sometimes accidentally disclosed and then retracted disclosure. Roswell is probably the biggest example of that, that we know of. If you go and look at the newspaper articles, the day after and then the following days after that, then they retract initial, things that they said. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot going on with disclosure, especially in the last couple of years. And we can't talk about government disclosure without also discussing misinformation and some of the theories about how and why certain pieces of information are being given to the general public. The question of where that information is being released is equally important to how and what is being released. I'll cover some of the 1991 CIA documents discussing their aims to integrate their efforts into media, academia, the business sector, and the private sector. And we can go through some of those documents, courtesy of having them, organized nicely for us in the Disclosure Project briefing document from 2025. Okay. It is important to keep in mind that there was a lot of talk about this stuff in the conspiratorial world the last couple decades, but we need to sift through that darkness, specifically relating to these CIA documents and some other things. We have to sift through the conspiratorial darkness here to try to focus on the nuts and bolts of it all. I highly recommend watching this episode, this voyage, on Spotify if you can, as I'll be showing some of these documents that the Disclosure Project, and I'll even be trying to bring up some pages from skinwalkers at the Pentagon. I'll be showing some videos and maybe photos and maybe some other documents from the Department of War's website as well, from their two most recent releases. If you're interested in following along visually and seeing what some of this stuff looks like. Some of the videos are pretty cool, right? It's nothing like groundbreaking and earth-shattering compared to what has already been released and has been leaked and what has been out there through eyewitness testimony from whistleblowers, et cetera, et cetera. Still, pretty cool stuff, nonetheless. Okay. Let's see here. Oh yeah, so I've written some things down here so I can kind of try to keep focused on what's going on here. So the Defense Intelligence Agency under the Pentagon's umbrella is who ran OSAP with James Lukatsky, Colt Kelleher, and George Knapp also contributed to writing the book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, as he is BFFs with Bob Bigelow. And a lot of the research from OSAP, the paranormal research, which is the part that's not talked about as much, took place at Skinwalker Ranch when Bigelow was the owner. And I think we all know, if we're in the world of the paranormal, we know how famous Skinwalker Ranch has become. I think it would also be fun to maybe make some disclosure predictions, maybe at the end of the episode, if I can remember to do that. Like, what's the craziest thing that will be disclosed at some point that none of us were expecting? I think that's a fun question to ponder, right? And as always, we think disclosure now is the only answer. NDAs be damned. I don't care about your non-disclosure agreement. We're talking about the reality of human existence, not being alone in the universe or in this dimension, whatever people want to call it, whatever they want to say. Your NDA be damned, right? And while saying that, I do understand that certain whistleblowers and people who have not come forward have been, they have threats to their lives, their safety, their family, et cetera, et cetera. It's not just so cut and dry, NDAs be damned, but NDAs be damned regarding this stuff, right? You know what the saddest part is? It's like you hear about some of the weaponization and the reverse engineering of this crashed ET technology, and you're like, oh, really? So you're just using this to try to get rich. And with money comes power. It's just some people. I guess I should stop being shocked by the lengths some people will go just to accrue more money and more power. When is enough? For some of these dirtbags, we don't know. We're going to find out when, someone becomes the world's first trillionaire, potentially within the next week. We're going to see what's enough for someone. Clearly someone is very sick if that's what they need. Basically what I'm saying here in regards to disclosure and all of this stuff, disclosure should not be trickled out. And it definitely shouldn't be trickled out through mega book deals and publicity tours, right? That seems to be the way a handful of whistleblowers and the like are doing it nowadays. And this is just the product of capitalism and greed and quote unquote the free market. And if this is such a big deal, so groundbreaking and life changing, why are there publicists involved? You know, it's it's just it's aggravating and it's upsetting and it's disappointing in many ways when you think about it in those terms. There shouldn't be a publicist involved when it comes to life changing, reality shaping information, right? So ask yourself that question before you go all in believing any of these people, whistleblowers, experiencers, et cetera, right? You must trust your instincts and understand that while some people may have some great information, it does not mean that all their information or opinions are to be believed or embraced. That's for you to decide, right? We see examples of that unfold as experiencers who suddenly become extremely popular. They start trying to tell you that aliens are angels or that aliens are demons, and they give you dates that something's going to happen, and those things don't happen on those dates. And then they just give you another date later. Or they say they make the date more generalized, right? That has happened this year. Things get fuzzy, right? And so you have to use your discernment, your intuition, and your instincts and make up your own mind and your own decisions about that, right? Um, Especially when believing like prognostications. When an experiencer then suddenly starts taking on the role of prophet, I start to get a little skeptical sometimes, maybe, but it depends on who the person is, depends what the message is. That's not to say that people haven't been given messages from aliens or extraterrestrials or entities, etc. That's not to say that they haven't. I believe that happens, right? Um, it's just we have to be careful when we start putting all of our eggs in one person's basket. We're all in this together, right? Um, and also to be clear, it doesn't mean that some of the information that some of these people have disclosed earlier is any less remarkable. But as experiencers, they are to be embraced. As prophets, I'd suggest some caution in following all their words to the letter. Is all I'm saying. And and some of these people, they're not calling themselves prophets. Okay, to be clear, you might be thinking of, I don't know. I'm not trying to single anybody out here. And regarding the bigger issue of global disclosure, I I choose to fight against and call BS on those who claim that humanity cannot handle the truth because they seem to raise themselves above humanity when they say these things, when they say this thing specifically. Somehow, the person telling you that humanity cannot handle the truth, they are able to handle it because maybe they are special. They have special access. They have above top secret clearance because they live their life doing a certain thing or living a certain way. They have been given access and insight into the truth that the rest of us simple folks couldn't ever possibly handle if we were told. It would break all of our brains. We'd freak out. We'd run into the streets naked, burning things down, screaming. We'd forget how to eat food or drink water. We wouldn't even remember that we had to poop sometimes, or have a job, or take care of each other and our families, or even have friendships. We wouldn't even remember how to use a phone, or open a book, or close a door. We couldn't handle it. It would break us down and we'd become these primal animals, right? That civilization has been built to tame that animal inside. And this truth would break civilization in a way that we'd all give in to our base animal instincts and we'd be running loose and afraid. We'd be so afraid, all of us. We'd be so scared all day long, every day. We'd be so frightened. We'd be frozen in fear. It would be a globe of fight or flight or freeze. And we'd all just be loaded up on cortisol, unable to move, unable to poop, unable to eat, because we'd be so scared because we didn't believe them when they told us that we couldn't handle it. But they can handle it because they're above us. They are the gatekeepers who are better than, more equipped to, somehow maybe more evolved. You get that? You understand? That's the messaging that comes whenever you hear someone say humanity couldn't handle the truth. Why don't you just say what you really want to say? You're better than us. You know the truth. We couldn't handle it because we're less than you. We're not as good as you. We're not as smart as you. We're not as evolved as you. That's what they are saying. And I call bullshit. I've called bullshit on it the whole time. And you should too, by the way. Reality should not be legislated. I agree with that 100%. You see how outrageous it is, right? You see how crazy and ridiculous it is that we're being treated like helpless children in that regard. That has to stop. They are part of the problem. They are 100% part of the problem, and they need to be removed from the equation in that way. And Disclosure Day is coming out. I don't know how they're going to handle it. I don't know what they're going to do. I really hope that they don't show the world freaking out in panic and fear. Who knows? I don't know how they're going to play it. I'm over that trope in movies when it comes to aliens and invasions and creatures from different dimensions and things. I'm over that whole thing. But just to be clear, Spielberg was asked, and I watched an interview. Spielberg was asked about this movie. About what is true in this movie and, kind of hinting at where you give it information. And this is a direct quote that I wrote down from his interview. This was from the red carpet or some red carpet event. He says, quote, "There's a very interesting convergence between my fiction because my movie is not a true story, but it's about something that I believe is very close to the truth." End quote. So Spielberg is saying this is not based on a true story. This is a work of fiction that he's been working on for a few years with the writer of the film. And they also asked him, like, well, who knows the truth? And he said the only people, basically kind of what he said was, the only people who know what the truth is are the people who are hiding the truth. And that's the case with any situation when you're trying to figure out what the truth is about something, right? So, those are just some initial thoughts about disclosure, just kind of recapping some beliefs that I've probably been spewing out on this show for years and years, and you've heard over and over if you've listened to this show. Gatekeepers be damned, NDAs, burn them, rip them up. Nobody gives a shit about your NDA. When you're talking about the true nature of reality and the fact that we've been living with aliens of some kind, or ETs of some kind, NHIs, non-human intelligence of some kind, for decades and decades and decades. And by the way, if we can get an alien on the phone, I'd like to ask them if they chose only to speak to like the United States government, which some people will speculate that that's the case, only our leaders, quote unquote. I got a bone to pick with ET. Like you should have a better bullshit detector. You should have a better psychopath detector when you're picking who to choose to talk to or make yourself known to. But these are the people that it would appear that we've elected and chosen to lead us and be in charge of departments and groups and organizations, et cetera, et cetera. We're all part of this system, right? In one way or another. That's not to say that certain people haven't figured out ways to control it and rig the game, because certainly that's the case. But here we are. Disclosure unfolding at a frighteningly slow pace, according to, like Dr. Greer and some of those people. Are like, we're running out of time to disclose. Is that true? I don't know, right? Like, I'm going to show an interview. And, I'm not trying to I think it's important for people to see. So, I'm not trying to just copyright infringement, all that kind of stuff, right? That's not what we do here on this show. But I want to show you some stuff that I think is important, right? And it kind of, it should be available to everybody, and it is available. right? And you can go to like the Disclosure Project's YouTube page, Dr. Greer's YouTube page. You can see all these interviews. There's an interview with someone from years ago, a whistleblower, who actually saw and worked on craft, right? And this stuff has been basically just to show this stuff has been going on for a long, long time. But people now, in the last couple of years, seem to be actually really looking for it. And I think that's an important development when it comes to all this. So let's see here. Um, yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so here we go. Now, as you can see here, I'm sharing my screen, kind of trying to do a split screen situation here for the video, of the video version of this podcast. But I'll be walking you through and talking you through everything that we got here. Now, this is a folder where I've taken some photos and I've got some photos of some of the key players in Disclosure currently, and in the past as well. I mean, let's see here. We've got this is Dr. Kelleher. Let's see here. Oh, that's kind of a big photo. That doesn't look great on the screen there. This is Dr. Stephen Greer. We've got here, who's in charge of the Disclosure Project for the last 36 years or whatever it's been. Oh, I showed this photo the other day. This is an alien autopsy photo that allegedly dates to the 1920s. So this is a really, really cool photo that is over 100 years old. And you can see there's an alien body, and it looks like there's about, I don't know, if I had to guess, there's like 4 or 5 doctors, and there's a couple suits behind them as well. Okay, so let's get into some of this stuff here. I want to get into the some of the initial documents that I saved. First, we're going to go through some CIA documents that are relative to disclosure when it comes to who is disclosing what and where, right? And this is the document that is highly referenced by conspiratorial people when they're talking about the CIA has people in, the media at every network. The CIA has somebody, who's, feeding stories to the reporters and, things like that. In academia, they have people. In the private business sector, they have people as well. And this is the document that kind of outlines that. And it's from December 20th, 1991, Task Force on Greater CIA Openness. The task force addressed the following. How can we do a better job of informing the general public and key constituencies about the need for a strong intelligence effort and about the missions and accomplishments of the intelligence community in a changing world? And to what extent do the dramatic changes in the world situation and the needs of oversight and accountability to the American people and their representatives dictate a re-examination of, did I say that right? Re-examination of policies on classification and release of records. And finally, how can we use openness to learn from others outside the agency in order to improve our capabilities and our people? And that is just the first thing that they really wanted to try to get into, right? They outline a few more. For example, here we go. Senior officials in the media, in the executive and legislative branches, in the business/private sector, and in academia, all shared their views on CIA openness with the task force. We also consulted agency retirees and employees throughout the organization. Many of those interviewed said the CIA was sufficiently open. All thought the CIA could do more to declassify and make available portions of its historical archives, especially regarding CIA successes and scientific/technical accomplishments. Some said the CIA will have to work harder at explaining the need for intelligence in a post-Cold War world. Okay. Basically, I really hope this document is sharing. I'm trying to see my view here and on Zoom, and I'm kind of getting a little, I think that's the window that is being shared. Sorry about this. I'm not, the biggest technical wizard in the world. I think as most people know. Okay. next document. Okay, this is page 3. This is kind of talking about what they want to do in this regard, and how they want to do it. In whatever program we pursue, we could get our employees on board first, be consistent, be excellent, be credible, admit when we are wrong, personalize the agency, preserve the mystique, which is interesting, wanting to preserve mystique. Um, I want to jump ahead to a couple things here. Let me see if I can get there. CIA is a law-abiding organization. I feel like sometimes there's jokes in here. I feel like sometimes there are jokes. I'm going to jump ahead here. Okay, here we go. So I wanted to jump to the current program section. Let me make this bigger so you can read it, if at all possible, if you're watching. Basically, the current program. Oh, nope, I don't want that. Come on now, John. Oh, come on, John. I apologize if you're listening to this and you're like, what is this guy doing right now? The question is valid. It's a valid question. What is this guy doing right now? Boom, boom, boom. Okay. The PAO now has relationships with reporters from every underlined major wire service, newspaper, news weekly, and television network in the nation. This has helped us turn some, quote, intelligence failure, end quote, stories into intelligence success stories, and it has contributed to the accuracy of countless others. In many instances, we have persuaded reporters to postpone, change, hold, or even scrap stories that could have adversely affected national security interests or jeopardized sources and methods. Now, this is what people are talking about. You know what I'm saying? This is what people are talking about. And like I said, this is from the Disclosure Project briefing document. Okay. Before we move on to that, I do have it because I've got some tabs in here, some things I wanted to explain, some acronyms that I think they do serve us. They serve us well if we know what they are. They go into, a little more specifics on the current program. It says, yeah, okay, NR is an acronym for National Resources. The PAO, which I said is the Public Affairs Office of the CIA, and the OTE is Office of Training and Education. So the agency has exactly 3 types of basic relationships with the U.S. business sector. First, business is an important source of intelligence information via national resources collection activities. Second, the U.S. corporate sector is involved in the vast bulk of the agency's contracting efforts. Finally, business receives selected briefings by the agency. Businesses, talks on the counterintelligence challenge, counterterrorism, and other presentations at business-oriented conferences organized by groups such as SASA, SASA. Given the emphasis on economic security for the United States in the 1990s, the business sector is looking to the potential contributions the intelligence community can make in this area, right? The Public Affairs Office should work with the Office of Training and Education to develop a training course for employees to better understand our relationship with the media, with particular emphasis on the rules for background briefings. Now, there is some information here that has been redacted, etc. But the reason I wanted to just kind of cover that and show you some of these pages, as you can see here, from this, these are official documents from 1991. As they say in the book, this document shows how the CIA is involved in manipulating information given to the public by means of the media, academia, etc. Now, while that is true, we understand that now, right? I think most people have heard this and most people are aware of this. And that is why the where and the how of disclosure is important when you're getting into a specific field of the disclosure of UFOs, UAPs, paranormal research, etc. That's why it's important to try to filter through the darkness and the conspiracies that we talked about at the beginning here. And this document, when it became public, is one of the biggest reasons there is everything is a conspiracy now, right? Anything that you see on the news is a plant. It's an operative giving you something, right? Now, do I think Lou Elizondo is a spook and giving misinformation and things like that? I think it's probably likely. I mean, they say once you work for the CIA, you never stop working for them. Is he giving accurate information? Probably so. Is he giving bad information? Who knows? I don't know. And I don't know Lou Elizondo. I just know, that he came, he kind of busts onto the scene as the guy who leaks the stuff in 2017 to the New York Times. Then he's got a book out that came out, a couple years ago now. And it just, I don't know. We talked about at the beginning. There's a publicist involved. I mean, how do you get information out in the capitalistic world? Through podcast, through book tours, through writing a book and then having the book tours, et cetera, I guess. Audiobooks, TV shows, not being on Ancient Aliens. That's not where disclosure happens on Ancient Aliens. Going to conferences and being a speaker. I don't know. There's money to be made, I suppose, in some way for giving the people what they want, which is information from like top secret government sources. If you are one of those top secret government sources, you stand to make a little bit of money. I don't think anybody's becoming, LeBron James rich over here in the disclosure world. Let's be very, very clear about that. And there are whistleblowers on the other side of the coin who seems to be quite the opposite effect. David Grush is a good example. David Grush isn't rolling around in like millions of dollars on a book deal and, all this stuff. Other whistleblowers who are worried about their lives being in danger, their safety, their family's safety, things like that. So you got to use discernment, right? Where is the information coming from? Can it be trusted? Let's go to the next book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. Now, this was written by James Lukatsky, Colm Kelleher, and George Knapp. Now, if we look here, we can see that this was cleared for public release on May 11, 2021 by the Defense Office of Republication and Security, or Pre-Publication and Security Review, and that is an office of the Department of Defense. Cleared everything that's in this book. And it goes on to say the views expressed in this publication are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Department of Defense or the United States government. The public release clearance of this publication by the Department of Defense does not imply Department of Defense endorsement or factual accuracy of the material. Where appropriate, in order to protect personally identifiable information and protected health information, names and personal details have been changed. So that was in 2021. We're talking about 5 years ago. Now, this book has been giving some kind of bombshell disclosure since its release. And it doesn't get talked about that much, I suppose. Outside of the paranormal community, it's a very well-known book, and I think most people I know who are hardcore into this stuff, I've read this book. I'm on my second read of it. I don't know where my first book went. It disappeared. I had bookmarks all over it, right? But there's something interesting. When you get into, I've got this bookmark, the Consciousness Department. Okay, but we can't, that's sidetracking me. That's for a different show. I wanted to talk specifically about, in this book, there's reference to the Dogman. And I think I've been pretty open about my feelings about Dogman. For years, I was like, that is so ridiculous that we're even talking about Dogman. You've heard me say that before. We can't just put any animal in front of the word man and make it a cryptid. But now this is, I mean, if you're looking for like authoritative credibility, this book is authoritative credibility, right? You've got the officially sanctioned United States government, Pentagon, or Department of Defense, the DIA, this is the guys who ran that program, right? And this is the book they're writing, disclosing information. This is what disclosure looks like. It's in a book. It's just unfortunate that more people don't read, I suppose. And I should read more. I'm not trying to judge. Now, there's a pseudonym in here for a person's name, whose family, after he visited Skinwalker Ranch, was tormented by dogmen, I believe. And basically what they're talking about is the eruption of anomalies in the home following trips to Skinwalker Ranch for the people who visit it. Jonathan Axelrod is the fake name. It's the pseudonym. And we have that person's real name now, and we're going to get into that here in a minute. Jay Stratton is that person's name. I think I have photos of Jay here. Let's boom, boom, boom. Oh, okay. So that's Lakatsky. That's really small. That's Jay Stratton, who is, I'm getting ready to read about him. Jonathan Axelrod. Jay Stratton is Jonathan Axelrod, who I'm getting ready to read about here. So such a tiny photo. Sorry about that. There we go. That's better. So that's Jay Stratton, who is Jonathan Axelrod. This is from page 81. Jonathan Axelrod and his family are the, quote, poster children for the eruption of anomalies in the home following trips to Skinwalker Ranch. For more than a dozen years following his July 2009 and subsequent trips to the ranch, Axelrod's wife and then teenage children were subjected to nightmarish, quote, dogmen, end quote, appearing in their backyard, to blue, red, yellow, and white orbs routinely floating through the home and in the yard, to black shadow people standing over their beds when they awoke, and to a relentless barrage of loud, unexplained footsteps walking up and down the stairs in their house. What was once a normal middle-class home in suburban Virginia became an inferno of bizarre, unexplained phenomena. And Axelrod and his family were certain that the trigger for this transformation was his first trip to Skinwalker Ranch. It is indeed lucky that the Axelrod family was and is extremely stable, psychologically well-adjusted and grounded and prone to matter-of-fact reactions to these events. So Jay Stratton, in the last couple of years, has come out and talked about this. And he himself has admitted that he was Jonathan Axelrod, who they had changed at the time of this book. They changed his name to protect his identity. He is now a quote unquote whistleblower for disclosure. And he's been on podcasts, and he's been on, he's done some things. He has claimed to have seen non-human craft and non-human beings. Now, that's big disclosure, right? And I guess the question is, do we believe it? And I tend to believe it. There seems to be a group of individuals who have had experience working in this field of the anomalous, the high strange, the paranormal, the UFO, the UAP, and they seem to be under directive to be giving information and to disclosing information. Now, the question is why? Is it something personal? We can talk about that when we get back. And then we're going to get into some of these videos. We're going to do a commercial here. So patreon.com/Ryan Singer. That's the Patreon. You can watch and you can listen to all these without commercials if you so choose. So this is probably going to be the last week. You can do it you can sign up for $3 to get into that tier. And we're going to jump up to $5 or $5.55, probably $5 even. I like numbers and threes, but I should have done $3.33, but I didn't, now that I think about it. But yeah, so get grandfathered in at the $3 tier to be a psychic and, commercial-free stuff, plus other stuff over there. Okay, we're going to be right back after this short message. Okay, welcome back. This is us celebrating Disclosure Week here. The release of Disclosure Day, the new Spielberg movie that'll be coming out tomorrow. Major blockbuster. Fingers crossed, we're hoping it's an awesome movie. So I want to talk a little bit about, and then maybe we'll drop this in here so you can hear some of it. Captain Bill Uhouse, who's wow. I mean, this is like a while ago, went on record as a whistleblower talking about his work on experimental ET UFOs. Now, what's interesting about his testimony, and well, I guess I shouldn't call it testimony. I should call it his interview, because to the best of my knowledge, is well, what I'm gonna drop in here for you, just a snippet or two, which I got from Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project, the CSETI and Sirius projects that they worked on. It's just an interview. They have interviews with all kinds of whistleblowers, over 35 hours of, I think, footage on the website. I'll link that so you can check that out on the Disclosure Project's website. You can go through their archive and you can watch all the stuff. You can look at documents. You can, all that kind of stuff. It's there for you, readily available, free of charge, by the way. You don't have to be a member. So I just want you to hear a little bit from this guy, if at all possible. Okay, like I said, this is, you can go for more information, SeriousDisclosure.com. All that's been updated. So this is Bill.
All the information wasn't there because even our guys, our people that were the top mathematicians and stuff, couldn't figure some of this stuff out. So we would take it, and then we'd have to, with each design, there's a requirement for calculations.
Now, what you just heard him say is him working with the world's top mathematicians and scientists in this area, at least that they had access to, that had clearance, working on a UFO, trying to make it work. And then he said, even when you have the formulas that they gave you, let's go back.
Requirement for calculations. And we'd have to prove by calculations, that this thing's going to operate. No different than anything else we do. And sometimes you get into a spot where you try, and even if you use the formulas to come up with this thing that they'd provide you, it wouldn't work. And that's where he'd come in, to tell him to look at this and see what we did wrong. So you really never knew how many we had. The last 40 years or so.
When he said you don't know how many we had, he's talking about actual craft. I just want to go back just a little bit here. Sorry.
This J-Rod had, his skin was pinkish, but a little bit rough, and that kind of stuff. Not, not horrible looking, or to me, he didn't look horrible looking. Some of the guys, that was in the particular groups that I was in, they never even made it, as far as I was concerned. When they gave you the psychological question, I just answered them the way I felt, and I had no problem, And that's what they wanted to know, if you'd become, hey, here's an alien, he's from here, and I don't know what, one of those kind of things, But it never bothered me, it didn't amount to much.
So he's talking about an interaction, seeing an alien with pink roughish skin. And when they couldn't figure out the calculations and the things that we watched first, that's when he'd come back in. That's when the alien would come back in to help them figure it out. This is wild stuff, right? And is Bill Uhouse, Captain Bill Uhouse, excuse me, let me make sure I get him. He's, a captain, fought in World War II, the later stages of World War II. Is he a household name? No. I mean, he seems, and if you can watch this video, it's nearly a 20-minute interview. It's incredible. He seems to have, it's incredible, and I think it's the perfect word to say for that, because it's like inside occupying credible, meaning he's got credibility. It seems credible. It seems real. I choose to believe Captain Uhouse, when he's describing his work on these craft, his interaction. I mean, it literally is incredible. So I'm trying to remember at the top of the show the things I said I was going to do, and I want to make sure that I hit on those things for you for disclosure. Disclosure is it's an amazing thing. It's an incredible thing when it happens from people like Captain Bill Uhouse and other whistleblowers who bravely step forward without protections that have still not been passed through Congress. Mike Turner, representative in my old hometown, Dayton, Ohio area, he is one of the biggest culprits in stopping disclosure from happening. He is one of the biggest guys who doesn't want you, the people of the world, to understand what's going on. Why? Because he's in the pockets of these defense contractors who are the ultimate scumbags, reverse engineering all this technology, according to reports, right? And Mike Turner has been called out and is one of the biggest offenders when it comes to this. Why? And it's because his jurisdiction basically is Wright Pat Air Force Base. Basically, it's just right there in my hometown where I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. Okay, let's get into this first here. And when it comes to disclosure, this is stuff that's in a book that has been out now for 5 years, basically. And I think that's important to know that disclosure is not happening soon. It has been happening, and that's what the point of this is. That disclosure has been happening in quite a profound way, nonetheless. So what is OSAP and how is it connected? Or what is Skinwalker Ranch and how is it connected to OSAP? Since 1994, the 500-acre property known as Skinwalker Ranch, located in northeastern Utah, has been continuously studied by humans and sensors, metallic UAPs, flying orbs of varying colors, otherworldly creatures, discarnate voices, poltergeist, electromagnetic anomalies, and orange portals have co-located as well as materialized separately on the property. These extraordinary phenomena have been witnessed by scores of independent visitors to the ranch almost continuously between 1994 and 2021. That's nearly 30 years. Additional details on the background of Skinwalker Ranch are summarized in Appendix 4. Skinwalker Ranch became famous almost overnight after the publication of Hunt for the Skinwalker, which is written by George Knapp, about the scientific research conducted between 96 and 2002 on these anomalies by Colm Kelleher, Eric Davis, and George Onit of Robert Bigelow's NIDS organization. That's the National Institute for Discovery Science. James Lakatsky and Jonathan Axelrod, J. Stratton, are two of the primary characters in this book, and both had read Hunt for the Skinwalker by 2007. In turn, as described in detail in Chapter 5, the book was the major stimulus for Lakatsky contacting Bigelow in July 2007 and subsequently visiting the ranch. The rest, as they say, is history. Okay? And this is the lineage. They're getting into the lineage. Skinwalker Ranch of OSAP, I mean, it's a small world. It is a small world. Now let's go up to OSAP's objectives. OSAP obviously later was able to get funded with the help of Senator Harry Reid, who was into this stuff pretty big time. And let's get into OSAP objectives. You can see on the screen if you're watching. As the small business set aside on FedBiz Ops stated, quote, one aspect of the future threat environment involves advanced aerospace weapon system applications. The objective of this program is to understand the physics and engineering of these applications as they apply to the foreign threat out to the far term, i.e. from now through the year 2050. Primary focus is on breakthrough technologies and applications that create discontinuities in currently evolving technology trends. The focus is not on extrapolations of current aerospace technology. The intent of the language crafted was totally directed towards a study on UAPs. There was no ambiguity here. All study of advanced aerospace technology during the OSAP was conducted under the rubric of UAPs. Finally, the sting is in the tail of this book. If any reader doubts that the OSAP had a much broader scope than the Pentagon's ATIP program described to date in the media, they only have to turn to Appendix 1 to peruse the titles, excuse me. I'll give that to you since you can't, it's getting cut off here. To peruse the titles of the 109 reports and databases that were delivered to and currently reside with the Defense Intelligence Agency of the United States. Now, I'm a dreamer, and I don't think I'm the only one. Okay. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is the government is hyper interested in, or there are certain elements of the government, I should say, very small fractions of the government that are hyper interested in studying paranormal phenomena and UAPs, UFOs. UAPs, UFOs have become much more interesting and much more talked about since 2017, the New York Times, with the leak of the Tic Tac video that Lou Elizondo is on record, I believe, saying he's the one who leaked those things. And what we have here now is we have OSAP, which also studied paranormal phenomena. Now, there are currently 4 books in this series from Lakatsky and crew. And I think Lakatsky has written the last 2. I have the last 2 on order. I have the first 2 here with me. And I also have Hunt for Skinwalker here, which created this whole program and sparked the interest with Jay Stratton, quote unquote, John Axelrod. There's 2 more books that go into greater detail about the implications and hopefully some of the theories and the ideas and the things. Lakatsky is on record saying people are asking the wrong question when asking him. After the book came out, obviously there were people in the paranormal world having him on podcasts and things like that. And he always said in interviews, people are asking the wrong question about the aliens. And my first thought was like, people are always asking, where are they from? What are they doing? What do they want with us? Blah, 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 blah. How long have they been here? And nobody was asking, when are they from? It was just an idea I had. But who knows if that's even, Lakatsky could hear that question from me and probably be like, you just laugh at me and be like, that's what you got? You had a year and a half to think about this, and that's what you got? Well done. So this is, and like it says there's the report, there's an appendix here that has information, appendix, the background on Skinwalker Ranch. There's graphs, there's charts, a lot of this, night vision devices, universal thermal monocular, Garmin global positioning systems. I mean, they're talking about, finally, BAS obtained technical surveillance countermeasures, TSCM, equipment in an effort to enhance the security of BAS facilities. That's Bigelow Aerospace. That was basically Bob Bigelow's, the billionaire Bob Bigelow. It's the rich guy who owns Skinwalker Ranch. It's his space company. And Cookeville, Tennessee. Interesting. I don't know if I ever knew that was in Cookeville. Not that I even really know where Cookeville, Tennessee is. Oh, what's this? People ask me all the time whether I am now a believer based on what we have seen and recorded during my ownership of the ranch. Oh, this is Brandon Fugel. Says Fugel to Den of Geek. The honest, most direct answer I can provide is that I am not a believer. I am an experiencer. I know that for a fact that it is real and have witnessed with my own eyes, with other credible witnesses at my side, what can only be described as daylight sightings of exotic craft over Skinwalker Ranch. He's the current owner of Skinwalker Ranch. That's an interesting sentence because we've been talking about being experiencers and not believers for years over here. And it's not like the most original concept, right? It's what happens to a person when they experience something and they understand that they have transcended through belief. So, it makes sense. I want to hear everybody say that. I want to, and I don't know who the first person who said it. It was probably 5,000 years ago, the first person who said that. But that's what we're looking for here. Okay. So, let's twist this around. I don't know why I got that twisted. One more excerpt from Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. All 5 actively serving intelligence agency personnel who visited Skinwalker Ranch during the OSAP Bass program experienced profound anomalies while on the property. And even more importantly, all 5 brought something home with them. That's the dogman. That leads up to the dogman thing that we talked about earlier. And it wasn't just Jay Stratton who experienced, I believe Lukatsky calls it the infectious agent syndrome in here. Most people consider it to be like the hitchhiker effect, but I believe he calls it the infectious agent phenomena or syndrome here. Let's stop share for a minute here. Because I think what we're going to do here is we're going to very shortly, we're going to take our last break, and then we're going to get into the website, the Department of War. What a joke that's called that now. United States government website. And, I'm just going to show you that website and how easy it is to look around it for disclosure purposes and for information and things like that. But I've downloaded, you can download all the files. I've already done that. I can show you a few. We can talk about some of the documents potentially. I do think it's to go through all of this stuff, I mean, is, there's some heavy lifting involved for sure. So we're gonna talk about that, talk about the future of disclosure and where it might go, and also what is our part right now. The person who just who's a stand-up comedian and has a paranormal podcast because they had paranormal experiences and is super fascinated by this and believes disclosure is the number one thing. What can I do right now? I mean, seriously, like, I don't have people calling me, telling me to shut up. I don't have a deep throat source. That's not what's going on over here. But what can I do right now regarding disclosure? And in fact, what I believe to be the most important thing I can do right now, we're going to talk about that as soon as we get back from this last little break, patreon.com/Ryan Singer. And I'm going to give you the secret to what I believe I can do and what I'm trying to do, which is the biggest, most important thing regarding disclosure. All right, we're back. Okay, for the final segment here, I'm going to tell you the most important thing I think I can do regarding disclosure. And also, we're going to go through the website. We'll finish off with what I think is the most important thing. We'll save that for the end. If you go to war.gov, I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. Our government is run by 11-year-old boys who think it's fun to play war, an army or whatever. Okay, moving on. It's not about that. War.gov. You can go to /UFO or /UFO. You can find the archive here or their releases, what they've released. There's been 2 releases. May 8th was the first release. May 22nd was the second release. You can download these if you're watching. I'm hovering over right here. You can download all of these videos and documents, a lot of PDFs, a lot of videos, and a handful of photographs as well. We don't need to read the sentence or any of that. But let me show you something that's interesting here. You can, I see I was looking for, I was searching earlier to see if the Hadron Collider, or what is it called? It's not. There's no records. I was typing in collider. You can type in. It's got a very functional search bar here that you can see here. Like I typed in portal. And both of the documents or both of the batches. There's no portal. I typed in people's names that I thought might be. Let's. There's no Axelrod. Let's type in Lukatsky. Nothing. Lukatsky. I think a lot of names, most of the names, if not all the names, will be released. UFO. You can type in Roswell, for example. Nothing comes up on that. But now what you can see here is you can go through and you can see when the incident happened. So if you want to go back to this batch, the earliest incident from batch 1, the May 8th batch, is going to be January 9th, 1950. It looks like here. Let's go to batch 2 because I think there's some earlier ones. We're going back to 47 in that. So boom, yeah, 1948. There are some PDFs, some interesting, and PDFs, I mean, basically the kind of scans of all these documents. There's a lot of interesting ones. Some of them even have Wright Field, which is Wright Pat Air Force Base, basically in Dayton, Ohio. We're talking like, to like some big, I'll click on one and I'll show you. So let's go here. So these are records relating to the collection and dissemination of intelligence. An Air Force intelligence report from November 1948 relating to unidentified flying objects and flying saucers. Okay. Now, you have to download these things to really like go through them all, right? And to kind of like, really read all the pages. But you can see the images, as you can see here. This is a radar image of a UFO or an unidentified flying object, a UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, as I guess they're going to call it. And it'll also show you related media that might be related to this photo. The monochrome image displays a uniform grainy texture with central crosshair reticle. A small, dark, and slightly irregular object is visible just below to the right of the center of the reticle. This narrative description is provided for informational purposes only. Readers should not interpret any part of this description as reflecting an analytical judgment, investigative conclusion, or factual determination regarding the described events, validity, nature, or significance. It cannot be used by Major League Baseball, and the NFL owns all the rights for rebroadcast. Basically, it sounds like that, doesn't it? So you can just cancel this out. It's very easy to navigate through this. Okay, now you can go through the types of files. So let's go to video file. Let's show you a video here of what hopefully is a pretty cool. And this is from 2022, so 2 years ago. This is what you're going to see here is imagery from. This is the ocean. You can see there are 3 boats there on the ocean. Let's hit play and see what happens. There's not going to be really any audio on these things. Boom! Look at that bad boy. Wow, that is a very seemingly fast flying object comes through and flies by these 3, what I imagine are United States naval vessels over water. So it's a UAP formation I ran August 26, 2022 in Iran. It was uploaded to a classified network in June 2024. That's a pretty cool video. And if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, but you can go there. You can just click on. It's the most recent one in batch 2. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. Apparent instantaneous acceleration examination. This is what this next video is. So let's see. Oh, this one's actually 5 minutes long. So I'm gonna actually go through this. Let's see here. Okay, this is an object that has instantaneous acceleration. It's got a kind of a crazy little shape to it as well. It's hard to tell the exact shape. And boom, now boom, it's gone. Wow, that is pretty cool. That is pretty damn cool. This one's from 2021. Wow. Okay, there it is. I mean, this is some pretty cool stuff. Arrow assesses that this video, whose uploader defined title is Syrian UAP Instant Acceleration, is likely derived from an infrared sensor aboard a U.S. military platform operating within the United States Central Command Area of Responsibility in 2021. A user uploaded this video to a classified network in June 2024. Interesting. The media was digitally altered prior to its upload to a classified network. I mean, you can see this white little dot. You can see it's cooking. The sensor is trying to center it. It's trying to lock into it. And now it switches into like a thermal or like a black and white image or more of a heat vision. So like a thermal. Now it's getting a more centralized window. It's trying to get real radar lock on, and then boom, it senses it, and then it slams on the brakes. We lose it. It comes back in, and there it is again. And this thing is almost like it's like, you know, when you see it, when you have like one of those cat toys on a stick on a string and you can swing it back and forth. It almost gives me that vibe. And our radar is, you know, our radar is the cat. We are the cat. And the UFO, whoever, whatever consciousness is driving, that's really slowed down here. This thing is just going wherever it wants, however it wants to. It's pretty cool stuff. This video is much longer, so let me, you know, get through it. But these are just some of the things you can see now on this website, and hopefully you're able to see that actually on the podcast. I don't know how much you got to zoom in on that, but here's another one from Syria. Oh shoot, what happened there? I accidentally went like full screen. Hopefully you can see that. While there is a lot of information redacted on this video, a lot of information is blacked out with these like giant black bars. I'm going to try to get out of this one because it's, you know, I'm going to exit full screen here. This one's kind of bonkers. Oh, what just happened here? Exit full screen. I don't need to be full screen on that. Sorry about that. So anyway, I know it's not great podcast for me, like talking about what I'm looking at. So I'm not going to do a lot more. I'm not going to do any more of that. Okay. We're going to call it. We're going to call it. You got to go to war.gov/UFO. You'll see what I'm talking about. And you can just download them and you can watch them on your computer, not have to be on the website. And, you know, you'll be able to actually get through all the documents, the PDFs, which are multiple pages long. So yeah, I mean, the website is, if you want to see other historical UAP records, and we've talked about this website in the past, you can go to AARO, AARO.mil, MIL, the National Archives UAP records. And that's where you can go see some other stuff from AARO, and All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which, you know, quite frankly, not a lot of people are big fans of the transparency and maybe potential disinformation and all that other stuff coming out of AARO, because one of their the guy who was previously in charge of it, not really on the side of disclosure. I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. I just remember there was major outcry within the UFO community and with whistleblowers talking about that guy just being like, you know, trying to act like everything was just not a UFO, basically saying none of this was real, none of it was valid, denying, trying to make people feel crazy. There's nothing being covered up. There's nothing being hidden. He's one of the guys, probably, very likely one of the guys that doesn't, you know, that wants a gatekeeper. We'll call him a gatekeeper, or he's gatekeeping for somebody else. He's licking the boots of the people keeping the gate, potentially. So anyway, I get a little fired up about some of this stuff. It's okay. We're allowed to, because we're talking about reality here. Reality should not be legislated. I like that line. I like that, or that sentiment, that idea. What can I be doing right now? And what should I be doing? And what am I trying to do right now regarding disclosure? And I'm speaking specifically about me. I'm not like third person eyeing or whatever. I don't even think that's, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of you. Like, what should you be doing and things like this. I'm just telling you what I'm trying to do right now, you know, other than go into my 50s with grace coming up very soon. I'm trying to live my life as if disclosure already happened. Now, to me, this might sound silly, this might sound ridiculous to some people, but to me, this is the most important thing I can be doing. I am trying to live my life as if full disclosure has already happened. Be the future you want to see, right? So, mentally preparing myself for a world in which you no longer have to like scratch and claw and, you know, fight for information to be released, or we no longer have to hope and pray or whatever, try to manifest, you know, the truth of reality being ever present everywhere and released. or understood is probably a better word for that. What does a post-disclosure world look like? For me, it looks like a world in where I am deeper tapped into. It's a badly worded sentence, where I am more deeply connected to my consciousness and the abilities and the powers that lie within. There are whistleblowers talking about this kind of stuff, which I think, gives that authoritarian or the authoritative, confidence, or, from an authority figure. More people are willing to believe it, as opposed to, like, maybe some kind of guy who's a little hippy dippy over here like me, who extols the virtues of the gateway meditations and trying to understand that we're more than our physical body, right? And physical reality is kind of an illusion, and consciousness is the foundation and the fabric from within we all operate and exist, and we are all connected through a global consciousness and a connectivity that can be felt through meditation and through trying to be present in a moment, and understanding that psychic abilities and psychokinesis or psychokinetic abilities and ESP or all the clairs, all these remote viewing, all these things are just the tip of the iceberg, potentially, for when it comes to fulfilling the potential of the human creature through kindness, through love, through presence in the now, and through escape from the limitations of a physical form. This is the future post-disclosure, when there's free energy sources that no one has to pay for. We can have clean drinking water. We can have electricity. We can cut out pollution from fossil fuels. This is post-disclosure, a post-disclosure world. I'm trying to live in a post-disclosure world now, or as I would operate within post-disclosure now. Releasing anger over trivial things, over things that drag me down into the muck and mire, extricate myself from simple outdated ideas like revenge or grudges or hurt feelings over ego and pride and greed and selfishness and just egocentric thinking in general, that I have to protect me and mine at all costs, when in fact the threats from the outside in a post-disclosure world hopefully are much more limited than they are now. There are many people suffering in this pre-disclosure world. There are people who bombs are falling on their neighborhoods. Their family members are being kidnapped off the streets by masked enforcers of an authoritarian fascist type government. There's people being kidnapped. There's people being, assaulted. I mean, there's people being robbed. I mean, yes, it's there. It's happening. Is it happening like all day, every day in such an overwhelming way that the 24-hour news cycle would have you believe? I'll let you answer that question for yourself. But in a post-disclosure world, we are now living in a world where we know we're not alone in the universe. We know that death in a physical form isn't final. How can I live like that now? And that mentality, to me, is the most important thing, because it always points me in one direction, and that is kindness, openness, forgiveness, love, and hope. That's the arrow. That's the arrow's direction, at least for me. So that is the most important thing I can do right now regarding disclosure, is do my damnedest to try to get there, because I got a lot of work to do. But here's the thing. As Lyle Lovett said, what would we even be? What would we even be if we never tried? Right? It's in one of his songs. If you don't know Lyle Lovett and his large band, I highly recommend it. Hamburger. What would we even be if we never tried? That's a really beautiful sentiment. So we can try, and we can fail, and we can fail, and we can embrace failure as our favorite thing, because that means at least we're trying. That's what stand-up comedy is. You fail so much in stand-up comedy. Trust me, I know that. You have to embrace failure. It's like your favorite thing. Maybe your second favorite thing would be success. Number one, failure, because that means we're trying, gosh darn it. So let's get out there and try to live in a post-disclosure world. Have our arrow, our internal compass always guide us towards kindness, connectivity, love, understanding, and forgiveness. And it's not easy sometimes when you see these monsters, these pigs out there doing awful stuff, hurting a lot of people. Why? For that cheddar, for that green, for that power, for that greed. Let's release all that. Let's move into this post-disclosure world, because we can have a post-disclosure physical reality, but mentally, are we ready for it? I don't know if we're talking about that. I mean, I think there are some people who are, but we're not talking about what are we doing mentally and I guess spiritually as a group of people who are so entrenched and locked into this modernistic, materialistic world. And let's be honest, pretty egocentric, most of us. How do we break free from that in our mentality to actually be able to thrive in a post-disclosure world? That's the trick. Yeah, I want disclosure now. Damn the NDAs, burn the MDAs, get rid of the gatekeepers, kick to the curb all the bootlickers. Yeah, but then what? Does it all just unfold in the same way again because we didn't do the work to have it different? I don't know. I'm trying to like at least become a person that doesn't get, from 0 to 60 on my anger scale when my GPS on my phone screws up and I'm maybe running close to being late and it wants me to take a left-hand turn during rush hour. And when there's not a stoplight or a stop sign, a four-way stop sign, I'm trying to be the guy who doesn't tell the robot that it never should have been born. I'm trying not to yell at the robot that it's never been good for anything and it never will be when it does something, when it does me so wrong, does me so dirty. Where is that? Why is that coming from, right? When are they from? James Lukatsky. When are they from? Also, we're going to leave it on that. One more thing, just a reminder in this Disclosure Week special, celebrating the release of Disclosure Day, bringing the most worldwide attention to the word and the idea of disclosure, probably, at least in this country, than there has been in a long time. If there's any more aliens out there who would like to chat, and I put out this call before and it worked. You've met Oscar on this show, and I'm going to get Jessica back on the show. Maybe Oscar will tell us what their thoughts about disclosure are here. But Jessica and Oscar, or at the very least, Jessica's enough. Jessica's enough. We'll be on the show again. But I'm going to put out another call. If there's any other aliens out there that want to chat, I'd love to have you on the show. Tell me your story. Tell me what it's like living with a bunch of meathead humans on this planet. I'd love to know how long you've been here, what your thoughts are, what you think we could do better, maybe what you guys do better that we could incorporate, and how they feel about disclosure. And are they also anxious for it to already happen? So any aliens, reach out to me. You're an alien, so I'm sure you know how to get a hold of me. But in the meantime, just remember, it's more fun to believe. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. And God, and it's not going to be too late, because it's never too late here on the Astral Plane. So, I hope to see you at a stand-up comedy show this summer. And if not, I'll just see you at the watering hole on the Astral Plane.
Now receiving frequency transmission.
We've made a tremendous number of mistakes. Perhaps the first and most crucial error we made was the agricultural revolution. The agricultural revolution doomed us to a life of subservience to crops. It made us sedentary, which was not only bad for us, but bad for the Earth. It encouraged exponential and largely unsustainable population growth, and it set us up for a system of classes and subjugation because now we had a way to store and control the distribution of food. I think another catastrophic mistake we've made is in the creation and spread of AI. I think AI poses a serious existential threat, and if we don't put some serious guardrails around it soon, we're going to be in trouble. It's human to err. How we learn and grow from our mistakes is important.
Transmission complete. Stay tuned to SpectreVision Radio. Stay.